What's your name?
My name is Imogene.
I'm Jeff. Yeah, good to meet you. And so what do you think happens after we die? What's your take on that?
I guess I used to think about the specifics more in terms of like death and after death.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was really into Hinduism growing up, reincarnation and all that. So if I had to put it in like one word, I'd probably say that.
Reincarnation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were into it, was that your family's?
No.
So it's just something you pursued on your own? And did you grow up in a certain
They
religion?
weren't religious. They go to an Episcopal church every Sunday now, though.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm home, I do go to church, which I enjoy as well.
Yeah. but your go-to would be reincarnation.
Yeah, like Alan Watts kind of stuff.
I don't know.
You read him?
No.
He was a British philosopher in the 60s. He has some really awesome ideas about just the conceptualizations we have in like the human world and like how we're separated and like even like scientific like explanations of how we can look at it all differently.
Uh-huh.
And that, you know, beginning, end, like middle, hot, cold, tall, short,
Yeah.
you know, don't always actually exist.
I think, like the whole Hindu or the Eastern religious concept is not of a linear time progression.
Uh-huh.
Like things are more in a circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think of reincarnation, do you think of coming back as another person or a object or an animal or like different?
I mean, I would say that like there's a certain life force in trees, but I wouldn't think that like you or me would like an exact like soul from us would be a tree in that kind of way.
Yeah.
I think we kind of like all share within a life force, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's the whole idea that like creation itself is all one life force, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, which is opposite the Christian idea that there's the creator and the creation. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Eastern religions would kind of say the creation is the creator.
Uh-huh.
In other words, the creator's in everything.
Right.
Is that kind of how you look at it?
Yeah, that it's all a process, and we're just part of the process.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily like a beginning or an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, may I ask what attracts you to that belief? Sounds like it's something like you say you've been pursuing it since you were
Yeah, I
as
was
a
a
teenager?
weird little kid. I started reading the Bible. I thought if I want to learn about God, I'll go to church.
Yeah.
And the story of Jesus just didn't interest me as much. I loved it. I still really enjoyed learning about Judaism too. But there was something about like the story of Ramakrishna in the 1800s. Some people say he was a prophet, or you don't really need to believe that, but that he went around and changed his religion and said he found God in each form, and each one was so beautiful. And
so you're actually so like you were started reading the stories about what Krishna? Is it Krishna?
Ramakrishna,
he's different
he
than
he lived in the 1800s. Just a regular guy. Yeah, and like the stories of Krishna, the god.
Yeah.
All those.
So Ramakrishna is a real person, but Krishna is more like a mythological character. Yeah. And I know there's like a book about him having a conversation with a chariot driver or something like that.
Bhagavad Gita, yeah.
Yeah. So you said you started reading the Bible, but then it was more like, was it that Ramakrishna more. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So, how did you find him different than?
I don't know. I liked kind of the inclusiveness of it, and of course, you talk to any religion, any sect, any religious person.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of, like high and mighty, like they don't know what they're talking about, but I do.
Yeah.
But I think at the heart of any philosophy, you can find like brotherhood. How would you say that with womanhood?
Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I would be the first to admit, because I'm a Christian. I go to a church. Christianity is probably it's in some ways it's very inclusive, but in some ways it's very exclusive. As far as Jesus' claims were, it was all about him. Like, I am the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father but by me,
But see, and there's so many different ways to interpret that, too.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, read it differently than others.
Yeah, but then even, like, a lot of times it's like, okay, maybe we can interpret it differently, but let's look at the reactions of the people he was actually talking to, And they reacted like he started talking about, like, you need to eat my body and drink my blood, and like, you need me more than life itself, and all of a sudden it was like all these crowds of people were following him, and all of a sudden they stopped following him. It was like, I don't know, like, we want you for the the bread that you're making and all the miracles you're performing, but when you start talking about, like, following you exclusively and, like, putting yourself on a level with God, because that's like how the people rent their garments, the leaders at some of Jesus' claims. It's like, wow, he really was it was all about him,
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I would say, I understand that, Jesus was very, not exclusive, because it's like everyone can come to him, but he was saying there's no other way to the Father, You're saying that there's a different way to interpret that, but do you see anything in Christianity that you know of that's inclusive for everybody? See what I'm saying?
That's for everybody?
Yeah.
Love thy neighbor?
Yeah.
That's my favorite part, I guess.
Yeah. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then just maybe to kind of tie, because I know all religions basically have some sort of a moral system, which I'm glad they do, because if they didn't, I think the world would be a lot more crazy than it is, But so the Bible actually teaches that there's, you're familiar with the creation story and Adam and Eve, and they were given this rule from God, and don't eat from that one tree, and they break it, and then all of a sudden it says their eyes were open and they knew good from evil. And from that point on in the Bible, it talks about people having God's law in their hearts. In other words, we all have a conscience, and so whether they're Indian, Hindu or Islam or whatever religion or no religion, atheist, everybody has a conscience. And so as a Christian, I would say, yeah, there's a universal need there, because we have a conscience, we know right from wrong, and yet we break it. And so how can we have a right relationship with our Creator if we're breaking His rules, or if we're not doing the things we know we should be doing, And so that's, to me, that's the universal question that religions are trying to answer, How can we make things right with our Creator, So as far as reincarnation, do you, would you say you believe in the Hindu version of reincarnation then? As far as if you're good, you'll go up higher, and if you're bad, you won't, or?
Like karma and all?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I don't know, I try not to put too many words in my mind these days.
Try to keep it simple.
Yeah, just be open to experience and love and
So the
spirit. And
yeah, 'cause I guess I'm just I mean I'm not trying to like say it's a bad thing, but at the same time, how do you determine truth? And obviously, like we kind of pick and choose what truth we want to believe, right? Or do you have a method for figuring out like what is the most important thing to believe? You know, like does it come from within you, like your choices, or does it come from, you know, like, so as a Christian I would say, like, I try to get my beliefs from the Bible, you know, that's my authority. And I've had to confront some things in the Bible that are there that it's like, okay, this is my authority, and do I really like it, you know? But and at times it was like, I don't know how I feel about that, but then I had to work it out and figure out how this fits in, you know? So, like, would you say your basis for truth comes from within, or from? It doesn't sound like you have like a sacred text that you're definitely committed to, or?
No, I mean, I've read several, and you know, obviously not like tied myself to one or one religion.
Yeah.
But just basic morality, you know, if something causes unnecessary suffering, you know, that's probably not good or true. Yeah.
You know. So something like the Ten Commandments? See, that's where I would say, the Ten Commandments, you know. So for example, like even the Ten Commandments, what makes killing wrong, you know? I mean, it sounds like obviously you're killing someone, right? But what makes it wrong is God said don't do it. Because if you think about it, whatever higher power there is, you know, as Christians we believe it's the God of the Bible, he's in charge of, I don't know, 100,000 people dying every day, right? He's in charge of bringing people into the world, and he's in charge of taking them out. And so I, as a Christian, would say, well, so what would be wrong for me to kill someone is, yeah, it's wrong to kill, but why? It's because I'm taking the place of God. It's like I'm doing something that God does.
Well, that's actually the basic question in the Bhagavad Gita. He's asking God, why do you want to send me to war? This clash of the kingdoms going on, and he's about to go into battle, and they're basically his cousins because the kingdoms are related. So Krishna is explaining, you know, your life path, and that sometimes things, you know, it's just what's set out for you to do. And
this is
that
Krishna
if you're
talking.
A warrior, you go to battle.
Oh, that's right.
That's good.
Because that's your place in life. It's like the warrior class.
Yeah,
and
that sometimes things happen, and you know.
Yeah. And so you need to do it because.
There's not necessarily like one right and one wrong, but you know. Right.
It's what God. Well, so, and Krishna is a God?
Yeah, he is. So there's the three, kind of like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in Christianity. There's the Creator, Sustainer, and Destroyer. So Brahma creates and brings into the world. Vishnu, whose incarnation is Krishna, and many others. Kind of sustains your life, is with you for your life, and then Shiva is the one who comes with blood everywhere and vicious teeth and destroys things. But they're all part of God. They're all part of the universe, and they all have good and evil within them, you know. But on the level of universal God, what is good and what is evil? Those are kind of like
the questions
constructs that we have.
Yeah. Are there, I haven't read it. I mean, I read about it, haven't read it. Are there actual like commands on what to do and what not to do? You know what I mean? Or is it more like you're supposed to kind of like get your morality from the story? or from the conversation?
Well,
So it's like a conversation between two people, and then you just kind of like glean from it, you know?
I'm sure there are definite like cultural impositions too that are part of the religion
Yeah.
that I wouldn't really know about, like guidelines and practices, and I don't know if they have like a 10 Commandments type of thing.
Right. Definitely like what you've grown up to believe and value and in that culture. Yeah. So as a Westerner, you'd be missing out on that, kind of. Yeah. I mean, so Christianity, the Bible, it definitely has its share of stories, but it also has definite, like, this is the way you should act as a Christian or as a good Jewish person in the Old Testament, or, you know. It definitely teaches, like, this is right and this is wrong, you know. One of the things a lot of people say, well, the Bible's so hard to understand, you know, and it's like, yeah, there are parts that are hard to understand, and then there's some parts that are like just, it's so simple, it's like, how could you miss it? And so I've learned to try to obey the simple parts, and then the more difficult parts start to make more sense, you know, as you're trying to live out what you do know, what you are certain about, you know. So I didn't know if Hindu texts had that sort of thing, or
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read them for a while,
yeah.
but yeah.
But then it sounds
Need to brush up on all of
yeah. And do you look? So you were saying you kind of like when you are reincarnated, you don't really accept the idea of karma, because the interesting thing is that is a form of judgment, you know, like whether it's an impersonal force like karma or actually standing before God's judgment throne like Christianity teaches. There's still a judgment, and the hope, I guess, of reincarnation is that, well, whatever I didn't get right, I'll get right in the next life, you know. And so there's this constant striving for perfection, I guess. In Christianity, it teaches, you know, it's appointed that we'll live once and then we'll die once, actually. It says we'll die once and then comes judgment. In other words, this is the life we're given, and we will stand before God and give an account, you know. So I could actually see how, you know, people would find that more attractive. Oh, I got many chances. If I don't get it right in this life,
Yeah.
is that how you look at it, or it's not so much?
Not so much. I'm sure some people do. But, you know, I don't want life to just be striving about some future moment. I want to believe that I'm whole and everything is whole and I'm present now and I'm living now and I can see the beauty in every moment, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that is what gets lost along a lot of the way in deciding what we're going to call good and bad, and, you know, talk about what we did in the past, what we're going to do in the future.
Yeah.
But we only live now. It's only this.
Yeah. Well, I want to respect your time, but can I say real quick, I do sense, I do, as a Christian, I live with a constant sense of wonder and gratitude and living in the moment. And I'll tell you how that works. It's not because I think I have to do a certain amount of things in order to get to heaven, and that, like you say, striving for the future, you know? And it actually comes from a weird source. It comes from the idea that I'm inherently selfish and sinful, and that I, you know, like that whole idea that I have a conscience, but I've broken it, and that I actually don't deserve. So like if I lived life thinking, well, number one, if I was striving, that would, you know, you're living for the future. You're, you know, constantly wondering, am I good enough, kind of thing. But also, if I felt like I'm a good person, that God just loves me because I'm so lovable, and then when bad things happen, or when I see ugliness in the world or whatever, I would start to think, but why isn't it better for me than that guy or that guy? See what I'm saying? And so my sense of gratitude and wonder and awe in the world actually comes from the idea that I have sinned against God, and I have to admit it. I've lied, I've stolen, I've, used God's name disrespectfully. I mean, I've broken every one of the 10 Commandments, if I really look at it in some way. I mean, Jesus said don't kill, but he also said don't have anger in your heart towards your brother and call him a fool. In other words, don't even hurt people with your words. Mm-hmm. So I haven't killed someone, but I've hurt people with my words. So from the idea, and this is why I think it's kind of strange, from the idea that I don't deserve anything, I deserve to be punished and not rewarded with heaven, comes this gratitude that, wow, God has given me a chance. Uh-huh. And he gave his life on the cross to die for me. Now how can I give my life for him? How can I live for him? How can I live out that gratitude? And so it's like, wow, I'm alive and I don't deserve it, but I'm going to enjoy this life and I'm going to live for God. And, so I do think a lot of churches maybe give the idea either that you're so good that God just naturally loves you, or you're striving for, heaven and maybe you'll make it, And I think there's that third way, which is we don't deserve it, but God is blessing us. Let's make the most of it, So
yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. Next time you go to the Episcopal Church. Yeah.
What was your name again?
I'm Jeff.
Jeff, nice to meet you.
So Ellen.
Emma
Jean. Yeah. Good talking with you.
Yeah, I'll see you around.
Would you like to see this on my blog? Can I give you the?
Sure.
Okay.